All right, welcome to today's show. So, why is Bitcoin still falling? Let's jump in. We'll talk a little bit about BMNR, MSTR, but mostly about Bitcoin today because it's the leading indicator of what's going on. And none of this is tax advice, financial advice, or legal advice. Do your own research. As you know, today, the Bank of Japan hiked their interest rates by 0.75%. This was priced in. If you watched my video yesterday, I was talking about that. So there you go. If you want my new book, Money Game, you can snag it down below. Plus, you can get my trading strategy for free. And let's jump in and talk about why Bitcoin is still falling, even though big money is actually buying. So a lot of people are confused right now. If institutions are buying billions of dollars of Bitcoin, why is the price still going down? Answer is pretty simple. It's going down because selling pressure is stronger and coming from other sources. And so a big reason for this is China. If you look at China, Bitcoin miners shut down roughly 1.3 gigawatts in, however you say this, Zhangjiang, amid CCP scrutiny. So Bitcoin miners in China region have powered down a bunch of their mining equipment. And China has again tightened the rules on Bitcoin mining. We've seen this before. This is not a new thing. Because of this, Bitcoin's network power, which is also called their hash rate, dropped about 8%. So that is a big move. Even today, China still controls about 14% of the global mining power. So when China acts, miners are forced to react. Why mining shutdowns push prices down? Let's talk about that, okay? When miners shut down, they stop earning money. They also still have bills to pay, and sometimes they need to sell their equipment, and they also must sell their Bitcoin. So it happens no matter what the price is. This is called miner capitulation. And to understand why this matters, let's take a look at history here. Back in 2021, if you all remember this, I remember in COVID, exactly where I was. We got the news that China banned mining province by province, and just it was big news. I remember Bitcoin dumped when that happened, and China controlled over 50% of the mining at that point. So with Bitcoin, there was a lot of selling pressure, and today the share is smaller, but an 8% hash rate drop still forces real selling. So that's part of the news. There's also another important group of selling right now. If you take a look at Bitcoin long-term holders here, early Bitcoin holders in Asia. Many of the oldest Bitcoin owners are based in Asia, so they're very closely connected to the mining activity. And if they expected trouble, which they did, they likely sold out weeks ago before the news hit the headlines. And that's exactly what the on-chain data shows us. The data shows higher selling from long-term holders, and this has been happening for about 1 to 2 months. Some people are talking about US Bitcoin ETFs, but here's the actual truth. US ETF outflows exist, but if we remove a few of the very large days, they're not big enough to explain how fast and how deep the drop has actually been. So the key clue is where the selling actually happens. So if you look at the exchange data here, Asian exchanges, there's steady net selling all through Q4. So if you look at Binance, Bybit, etc., these are Asian exchanges. US exchanges like Coinbase, they still show net buying. So you got this whole kind of scale tipping here where you got Asia is selling and you got the US, which is still buying. And so what this tells us is the US is buying. Institutions are accumulating. Most of the selling with Bitcoin is coming from Asia. Now we know that Bitcoin leads the market. So when Bitcoin's dropping, Ethereum's typically dropping. When Ethereum's dropping, BMNR is going down, MSTR is going down, and that's what we've been seeing. And most of the selling pressure is coming from Asia, especially from the miners, okay, and her early holders. So Bitcoin can fall even when big money buys, and that's what's happening. Not panic selling. This is just old supply moving to new hands. I've also been talking about on my show how we've seen lots of retail investors getting out of the game and institutions are taking over. Now what we're seeing here is the old supply is moving into new hands, a lot of the old supply from Asia. Historically, Bitcoin stays weak only until that forced selling ends. And so let's take a look and connect the dots here, okay? After all the up and down action, after all the liquidations, after all the selling, here's what the data is actually telling us. So first, you got this pump and dump, okay? It isn't random. So let's take a look here, all right? The big move we saw above 90,000 recently, that wasn't really strength. That was price being pushed up on purpose to wipe out traders using leverage. So we've been seeing this it's been going on for a while. We saw this on October 10th with the big liquidation event. You got these market makers, they're hunting liquidity and they're going to where the liquidity is and they're liquidating people. And so price goes up, the shorts get wiped out, price goes down, the longs get wiped out. So market makers, they win either way, but here's the actual key thing. None of this hurts the long-term holders. If you're holding spot Bitcoin, this noise doesn't change the story. So second thing is Bitcoin's extremely oversold right now. So if you take a look here, well, on the weekly charts, Bitcoin is more stretched away from its average. This is good data from James from Invest Answers. And on the weekly chart, Bitcoin's more stretched away from its average than any time since late 2022. So it sounds a little scary, but it also means most of the damage is already done here, okay? Markets don't stay stretched forever, and they're extremely stretched right now. They always snap back towards the middle. So that doesn't mean we're going to see, straight up and moving tomorrow. It doesn't mean that, we're not going to go down anymore, but the markets are oversold right now in terms of Bitcoin. All right. Third, some people are selling at a loss. So you've got now some people selling at a loss. If you look at the spent output profit ratio, all that means is, are people selling their Bitcoin at a profit or are they selling it at a loss? And this chart shows that some people are actually selling it at a loss, okay? So few holders are now selling Bitcoin for less than what they paid, which clearly is a loss. So that usually happens when the weak hands give up, and we've seen this. I mean, right now we're in a market cycle that's completely unfamiliar. So many of us are expecting huge October, November, December runs. We didn't get it. We got the actual opposite. So if you're brand new to Bitcoin, brand new to BMNR, everybody's brand new to BMNR, but brand new to MSTR, brand new to ETH, ultimately people who are new to the game are not going to hold through this in most cases. Those of us who've been around for a while, I've been around since 2018, invested in Bitcoin. We've been through stuff like this before where the weak hands give up and then, I've held through it and in the long run I've won. But what happens when the weak hands give up is the strong hands step in, and the strong hands right now are the institutions. The institutions are buying, they're stepping in. Anybody who got into Bitcoin for this cycle is probably shocked of like, what's going on? Have never seen anything like this before. Nobody's seen anything like this before in terms of the 4-year cycle. We always thought this was going to go up and win, and it did not this time of the year. So, even the OGs who've been in this space for a while are like, what is going on? And it's very, very, very unpredictable right now. And so that is the space that we're in. And the only thing that we can decide on or postulate on or hope for is that 2026 could be a good year, but we will see what happens. So in the last 2 years, every time this happened, Bitcoin bounced later, not instantly, but eventually it bounced. Fourth, you got long-term holders are not panicking. Over 17% of all Bitcoin hasn't moved in 10 years. That's a lot, right? So you got a lot of long-term people that are holding on right now, which is good news. And then you've got 5-year holders are rising again. So 5-year hodl wave rising now 31%. And 1-year hodlers just stopped dumping. Okay, so the 1-year hodlers stopped dumping. So the people who understand Bitcoin best are not selling into this fear. I'm not selling my Bitcoin. I'm holding on to my Bitcoin. The last time I bought Bitcoin was in 2023 when it was at 30,000. And my first Bitcoin that I bought was my first several Bitcoin I bought were at 3,000. And I actually first started mining Bitcoin in 2018. That's the way I actually got into it. So you got the people who understand Bitcoin best. They're not selling. They are holding. And if you look at this cycle is about liquidity. So here's something from Shanaka Pereira here. He says the halving never mattered. After 16 years and 4 halvings, the data is finally conclusive. Every single post-halving rally in Bitcoin history coincided with major central bank liquidity events. Not one can be isolated. So 2012, we had the Cyprus banking crisis. 2016, post-quantitative easing environment. with the ICO boom. And then 2020, the Fed balance sheet doubled to 9 trillion. And 2024 halving, ETFs front ran it, price peaked before the event. So we will see what happens moving on into 2026. The halving didn't magically make Bitcoin go up. So that's what he's saying here. Every Bitcoin rally happened when lots of money entered the system. So as of December 1st, we know that quantitative tightening ended, which basically means that quantitative easing started. The Fed's talking about and is starting to buy $40 billion of T-bills every single month. As they're doing that and buying the T-bills, that puts money into the system. So basically when they buy T-bills, that's them pushing more liquidity into the system, okay? So when money gets tight, Bitcoin falls fast. When money flows again, Bitcoin rises fast. So with quantitative tightening gone, with interest rates being cut, money should flow back into the system, and Bitcoin should eventually rise. So right now, the liquidity is tight still. That's why Bitcoin feels pretty heavy. And then finally, the 6th point here is ETFs are quiet for now. The last big ETF buy was 11/11/2025. And so the last major ETF buying wave was in November. Okay. So since then, there's been fewer big buys. There's been more red days than green, as we've seen, because Bitcoin has dropped from its all-time high to, as low as 84,000 yesterday. And we dropped to about 80,000 a month ago. So more red days than green, heavy selling pressure for sure. But it doesn't mean that ETFs are gone forever. It just means they're waiting. And if you look at the news that I was showing before, it looks like China has been the one who's been selling a lot. And for the US ETFs, there's been more inflows, of course, than China. Okay. So all of this, I'm sitting tight on this. I'm holding on to Bitcoin, holding on to MSTR. I do trade BMNR on a daily basis and trade different derivatives of BMNR. If you want to get my trading strategy, you can click down below. I was up 20% this week on trading, and then I'm down about, if I look at it today I'm down about 5% today. So I'm net 15% up on my trading portfolio this week. If you want to learn how I'm doing it, you can click down below and you can snag my free video on training and get my free on trading, I should say, and get my free book as well. Okay. It's down below on the link. You can snag it totally free. You can see what I'm doing. All right. So that's what's going on with ETFs. There's also the FUD about strategy. I mean, we've been watching the bloodbath of strategy go on for a while. Almost looked like a full blown out attack on strategy for a month there. It seems like it's quieted down, but certainly hurt the sentiment for sure. Morgan Stanley Capital International and Saylor, they say meeting makes sense, and there they are, right? Morgan Stanley. So what's really happening? And again, this whole thing with Morgan Stanley and Michael Saylor, this thing will pass. Ultimately, if you watch Saylor's speech that he gave at the recent conference he was at, he's been meeting with so many of the big banks. So as far as I'm concerned, Strategy's future is extremely secure. If you watch some of my previous videos, they now have, quite a bit of cash flow now that they're holding in their reserves to pay dividends for their Strike, their Stride, their Strife, all their different preferred stocks. They're going to have no issues paying dividends. They have very little debt. The company, they have a huge Bitcoin stack. They own over 3% of it. As far as I'm concerned, long-term, the future is written for Strategy. They're going to crush it over the long term and be one of the most valuable companies in the world. I see the same thing for BMNR. I think BMNR is going to be one of the most valuable companies in the world as well. They're edging up to about 4% of the supply of Ethereum. Who would have thought? We just know that the stock is extremely volatile, and that's the stock that I trade. I trade BMNR. I used to trade Strategy, but I trade BMNR. They account for about 92% of the trading of all digital asset treasury companies. So lots of trading going on with BMNR. Super volatile, great stock to trade. Like I said, it's why I can have massive weeks like I had this week. And then some days you win and some days you lose, but I'm up net for the week, which is great. So BMNR is a great stock to trade. If you want to learn, you can go watch my video down below, click on the link, and I show you how I'm trading it. Okay. So what's really happening? The weak hands are getting shaken out. You have long-term holders are staying calm, and the price is completely stretched and completely oversold. I mean, Bitcoin is oversold right now. Okay. Liquidity is tight though. So that's the thing. All right. So the phase doesn't feel good. That's normal. Markets don't bottom when people feel hopeful. They bottom when people are like burnt out, exhausted, and we can sell. Okay. So we're not at the finish line yet, but this looks a lot more like, pain than early danger. My advice to myself is continue to stay patient, stay calm. This is ultimately a long-term game. Bitcoin's a long-term game. MSTR is a long-term game. BMNR is a long-term game. They're all long-term games. So that is the story. Hopefully things are going well for you and you're staying patient on things. This is an unseen cycle that we've never seen before. And we're now seeing it for the first time. And if you heard Saylor talk, over a year ago, he was saying this is an institutional game right now. You can throw out your charts, you can throw out all your stuff and all your graphs, because this is a new game that we haven't seen before. Because it's completely shifted. The holders have shifted from retail to institutional, and it's now an institutional game. And we see that by the blockchain with Ethereum, with the numbers of companies that are building on Ethereum and the blockchain right now. That's not going away. So long term, it's super, super bullish for crypto. In the short term, it's just crappy, and we got to wait it out. All right. So I hope all of this serves you. And if you want to go grab my book, you can go grab it down below. It is called Money Game. I wrote this book about 7-8 months ago, so you can go check it out. It's a great book. It's totally free. It talks about MSTR, BMNR, Ethereum, Bitcoin. Talks about traditional finance, traditional investments. Talks about how the Fed works. I think you'll like it. I also attached a video there that you'll get for free on my trading strategy. And you can go check all this stuff out. And if I were to show you this would be kind of interesting, actually. Let me see. No. I wanted to show you something from our community, but I'm not going to show it because I can't pull up the screen. But anyway, hope this serves you guys. Have a great rest of the day. Go snag my book down below, and hope you guys have a great day. And I'll see you in the next video.